inform about his drug use during a 2018 firearm purchase. Here's Fox's Lucas Tomlinson.
The prosecution has rested its case. Now it's over to the defense in day 5 of the gun charge against President Biden's son, Hunter. And he caught a glimpse of 2 family members who are expected to testify this afternoon. Naomi Biden, that's Hunter Biden's eldest daughter. James Biden, of course, President Biden's brother, both expected to testify this afternoon. Now, the prosecution called its last 2 witnesses. An FBI forensic chemist testifies that he found cocaine residue inside that pouch that contained the handgun Hunter Biden's sister-in-law and lover, Hallie Biden, tossed in that trash can outside their favorite gourmet restaurant.
Hunter Biden can face up to 25 years in prison if convicted. As D-Day commemoration ceremonies were held yesterday, it was a good reminder that America's spiritual strength has been intertwined with our nation's military strength and political standing on the world stage. Mark Lavecchi, Distinguished Scholar of Ethics, War and Public Life at Providence Institute of Religion and Democracy, and a non-resident research fellow at the U.S. Naval War College, joined Washington Watch.
We're very uncomfortable with power nowadays, especially especially within the Christian community. But power is essential. God has power. Power is a good. It could be used for good. It could be used for evil. But without it, nothing happens. And it was American power and willingness to stand with our allies that helped bring about things like D-Day.
He said our moral bearing comes from objective truth.
Within the classical understanding of just war, it is grounded deeply in Christian responsibilities that come out of all the way back into Genesis. We were made in the image of God to exercise dominion. That's part of what it means to be made in the image. And as with individuals, so with government. Hard on the heels of being made in the image of God, we have the fall. And now the exercise of dominion, which is not domination but stewardship, has to take into account the fact of the fall.
Delegates at the Texas Democratic Convention in El Paso are set to vote on a party rule change that, if passed, would add a no-preference choice to presidential primary ballots, KERA News reports. A no-preference option would give voters in the Democrat primary another choice if they don't like the candidates. Well, the state election code gives parties the right to add a no-preference option on their primary ballots. This would be the first time the Texas Democrats allow it. 1 Million Moms is sounding the alarm over a lesbian kiss scene in a show made for kids. Here's AFN's Bronson Woodruff.
Monica Cole is the director of 1 Million Moms. She told AFN about an animated series on Netflix called Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. Season 5, Episode 9, titled The Core, has a scene where 2 females share a kiss.
And then their friends cheer and also really excited about this new lesbian romance.
Cole is asking supporters to sign a pledge for Netflix to change its ways.
They're just going full speed ahead promoting the LGBTQ agenda, especially to our children. Unfortunately, 1 Million Moms is currently asking our supporters to sign a pledge asking that Netflix remain family-friendly and that we'll no longer support Netflix as long as they don't have family-friendly entertainment available. Because as far as Jurassic World, an animated cartoon about dinosaurs, you wouldn't expect to be inundated or indoctrinating children with a PG rating cartoon.
Cole said her team is letting parents know to make sure that all families are aware of this and not caught off guard by it.
Most parents don't expect their children to be exposed to this type of content, especially on a cartoon about dinosaurs. But when you have a lesbian romance being expressed, these types of premature conversations do get brought up to families.
You can find the petition now on 1 Million Moms' website. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
The Storm Prediction Center says severe storms are expected across the Central Plains today. Damaging winds and large hail are the primary threats. Specifically, there is an enhanced risk, a level 3 out of 5, of severe storms this afternoon and evening from central Nebraska southeastward into northeast Kansas and western Missouri. I'm Robert Thornton.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential, and we will help you find healing. 866-482-LIFE.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Nurse Mama Show, prescribing hope for healthy families here on American Family Radio. Here's your host, Professor, Pediatric Nurse Practitioner, and Mom of 4, Dr. Jessica Peck.
Well, hey friends, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you hear a little extra bounce in my step, you would be correct in your assessment. It is Friday, guys. It's Friday. We've made it through the week, and no matter what kind of job you have, no matter what kind of schedule, there is something about Friday that just makes us all feel a little better, and I'm so happy that it's Friday, or Fri-yay, as my kids say, and as we do here on this show. Today is Ask Dr. Nurse Mama Friday, and listen, let me tell you, my inbox, my phone, my patient interactions, my student interactions, all the questions are all about tech. I have had so many questions about tech, and this continues to be just a point of contention. And if you're like me, you know, I'm a Gen Xer, and I remember the days before the internet. I remember the days of long curlicue phone cords that you would stretch all the way down the hallway and try to fit into the hall closet so that you could have a conversation in private. I remember the days before call waiting. I remember all of those glorious days without technology. And if I'm honest, sometimes I wish we could go back. I think, why can't we just have those glorious days? And if you missed the show on Tuesday, I talked to Micah Mariano about camp. And I think this is one of the really important things we can do for our kids in the summertime is make sure they're having tech-free times. Whether that's a camp that they're going to, whether that's just mom and dad doing something that is enacting some boundaries so they have tech-free time, or whether that's going to grandma and grandpa's house that doesn't have as much tech. And, you know, I know that was one of the things I loved most about visiting my grandmother, because she knew how to be a host. When I would walk in, she would tell my papa, turn off the TV. Jessica is here. Like it was just, you know, a grand announcement. She would serve moon pies and Dr. Peppers, and she would let me feast on her attention. That was what she gave me, her undivided attention. And she didn't have a phone in front of her, and she just gave me eye contact and her heart. And kids need that these days. Now, on the other hand, technology is a reality of 21st century parenting. It's not going away. And in fact, it's getting faster and faster and faster. So we cannot stop it. It is a train that is coming, but we can give our kids some guardrails. We can model healthy usage for our families. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to answer a bunch of questions about all things tech. Now, there are threats that come with tech, with technology. So I want to give you a disclaimer. We are going to talk about some tough things today. If you've got little ears around, this is a good time to get them busy doing something else, or to turn this program down, come back, listen to it later. And especially if you have kids, friends who have kids who are preteens or teens, make sure you send them a text message, send them this program, tag them on Facebook, wherever you are, and tell them, hey, these are some things that you need to know about. Because in the clinical situations that I'm encountering and in the news stories I'm reading, I am seeing the same thing from parents over and over again saying, we had no idea. We did not even know this threat existed. So yes, as parents, we need to be aware of these threats that are there. But I want to tell you, before I even dive into that scary pool, that we are not going to adopt fear-based parenting, where we are trying to shut everything down, where we were operating from a place of fear, where we're just, telling our kids what not to do. We are going to operate from a sense of parenting that is faith-informed, knowing that we are going to be as intentional as we can about learning about the things our kids are facing, but we know that God is in control. And we know that God knows our kids and loves them even more than we do. And we are going to exercise that faith and trust as we go through. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. If you have been listening since January, you know I have challenged you. Yes, that's you. You're thinking, me? Yes, you. I've challenged you to adopt 52 habits for healthy families. And we've been going since January. So let me run through them really quickly as a little pop quiz before I jump into this week's habit. We've got prayer, praying regularly for your kids. We've got memorizing scripture, speaking it over them. We've got plugging into a local church, going with your family. We have listening to Christian music, playing words of hope that will go over your home. We've got practicing gratitude, where we are intentionally taking time as a family to say thank you. We have listen with your face, where we're putting our tech down. We're turning our faces away from screens. We're making eye contact when we talk to each other. We have a bedtime routine, whatever that looks like for your family. We have sleep hygiene. We're recognizing the importance of rest. We're doing a daily devotional at whatever point during the day that works for you. We're working on a morning routine where we get up and we set our family up for success during the day. We are playing together because this world is scary and it is hard, and we need to laugh and we need to have fun. We have words of affirmation. There are a lot of words of caution that we have to give. There are a lot of words of correction. We need to balance those with affirmation. We have writing letters, where kids receive all kinds of communication that is digital and disposable. We are talking about handwriting that, yes, is not even present in some schools now, which is hard to believe. But give your kids the novelty and the legacy of writing something. We have family dinners together. We know families who eat together have healthier families. We have giving generously. We know families who give and serve together. They have better health outcomes. We have prioritizing our family time, making sure your credit card and your calendar say that your family is as important as you are saying it is. We have modeling your faith, where you're showing your kids that you're praying, that you're reading your Bible, that you're turning to the Lord in times of trouble. We have healthy snacks, knowing that snacks fuel our body, and thinking about what kinds of food we are putting into our bodies that fuel our mind. We have watching faith-based films with your kids and talking about them. We know watching media together is the best way to watch media because we can guide our kids through things through natural conversations. We have gathering with family, getting together with extended family, and having our kids have a sense of family that's bigger than your nuclear family, knowing that there are people who love and support them. We've talked about tech-free zones. In my house, that's my car, the dinner table, and bedrooms. Those are tech-free. We talked about being in pictures with your kids and making sure that we are not criticizing the way that we look, because they are our kids. That's the way they look, and being present in pictures and having healthy body images. We've talked about going on vacation, whether that's a big adventure or a staycation. And can you believe we are about halfway through the year? We are at week 23, if you were counting. So this week's habit is transparent tech use. Transparent tech. Now, what in the world do I mean by that? I think it's really important for us to create a culture in our home where we are transparent as parents with our use of technology. See, it works out perfectly there. When we're talking, the word parent is even in there. We need to be transparent as parents with our technology. Now, what do I mean by that? Usually, when we start to do something that is secretive, that we don't want anybody else to see, that is a good warning sign. That should be a little moment of conviction. Why can't someone see this? Why would you not want your kids to see the text messages that you're sending? Are you saying something? Now, sometimes, obviously, there are things that kids do not need to know, but it's a good point of self-assessment to ask. Is there language that you're using that maybe you wouldn't use with your kids? Or do you not want them to see that you're watching this show, but telling them not to watch this show? The more transparent you are, the more accountability there is in your family, and the more you normalize looking at each other's tech. Now, I get a lot of questions from parents about, should I check my kid's phone? And I say, absolutely. In fact, what I say is, I pay, I say. So if I'm paying for your phone, I have all say on my phone. But the whole point is not to be the phone police, but to give accountability and to live together in community, to be guidance, to be guardians of them, not policing them. So ways that you can do this practically are put the computer, the family computer, out on a place where it's easy for anybody to see, where anybody could look over and see whether it's at the kitchen table, the dining room table, a little tiny table that you put in the living room, where everybody can see what you're browsing. It's a great way to have accountability. Another way is to make sure that your kids can go through your phone. They can look at the pictures you've taken. They can look at the text messages that you've sent. Now, of course, there are boundaries with respect there, but you should be pretty open with that. And at minimum, model that with your spouse, that I know the password to my husband's phone. He knows the password to my phone. We have full access to each other's tech. So at a minimum, you can start there. That's really, really important to do. The other things are making sure that kids don't have too much physical privacy when they are using their phones. When you have kids who are in their bedroom with the door closed and they know that you're not going to come by for 2 or 3 hours, it is just too tempting to look at things that maybe they shouldn't. And their thumb moves faster than the prefrontal cortex in their brain. They make poor decisions. Good kids make poor decisions. And I'm going to dive into that here in just a little bit and tell you how that happens. But if the door is open, if you are checking on them regularly, just stopping by, or if you have a family culture of being out all together physically in the living room and everybody has their phone in front of each other, these are things that help. So regardless of the ages of your kids, I encourage you to think about the level of transparency you have with your tech use and just to engage in a culture of transparency in your home. This is, and again, another safety guardrail that you can put up with your kids. So with that, having said that, those are the habits. I hope that you are joining in on all of those. It is not about being a perfect parent. It is about being a present parent. And it's not about perfection. It's about progress. And then we know that consistency over time and trying to establish these habits, these disciplines, any little tiny bit of progress is just going to be benefit to your family. Don't set the bar too high so you set yourself up for failure, but give yourself small little milestones along the way. This is the secret sauce to a healthy family. I'm telling you, these are the things that you need to be doing as a family. So with that, let's jump in and talk about some tech issues. Now, first, I never talk about tech without first talking to parents, because so often we want to just immediately point the finger at this generation, at this culture, at how kids are using tech inappropriately, but we always have to hold up that mirror first. So just a quick little review about nomophobia. As we move into the summer, we are going to have kids who have a lot more screen time, regardless of their age. And we are going to have kids with a lot more time on their hand, moms with kids who are home, who, the first day of summer, we have all of these glorious images about the most wonderful parent we're going to be. And then by week 3, it's Netflix as your parents now, just go with the screen time. Make sure you're not modeling that nomophobia. I say no nomophobia this summer. That is no mobile phone phobia. You know it. It's a psychological condition when you have an irrational fear of being detached from your cell phone. You panic as you drive away from the house. You feel your pocket. You look in your purse and you realize your phone's not there. And as we fuss at our teens about screen time, we know that we do that. We take our phone with us everywhere in the house. Do you have your phone in the bathroom? Are you even playing it while you're in the shower? Is it the last thing you touch at night and the first thing you reach for in the morning? Do you have physical symptoms of anxiety without your phone? If you leave it at home, will you always turn around to go and get it? Do you get anxious and panicky when your battery is low, or you become hyperfixated if you don't have a signal? Will you sit on the floor in an airport just to be close to a charger and not interrupt your phone use? Or here's the hardest question: do you put other people's lives at risk to check your phone while you're driving? I know, that was really, really tough. But before we judge our teens and their screen use, we need to take inventory of our own. We need to admit it and make a commitment to choose in-person over digital interactions. Ask your kids to call you out. Honestly evaluate your phone use and intentionally decide to leave your phone for short periods of time. Well, when we come back, I'm going to talk about threats that are facing kids through screens today. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
This is the Lost in Translation Ministry Minute. Here now is your host, Dr. Baruch Korman.
When we look at the scripture, and make no mistake about it, both prophetically from the Old Testament and also what we see in the New Testament, written by Peter, written by Paul, written by Messiah himself, there is going to be strong deception in this world. And if you do not love the truth, if you are not prophetically sensitive to what the Word of God instructs, then you are going to be deceived. And the outcome of that is going to be shame, and you're not going to have a testimony.
Learn more about the teaching ministry of Dr. Baruch Korman at loveisrael.org. You'll find videos on almost any biblical topic on his YouTube page and on the My Bible Study app. That's loveisrael.org.
Since 2005, 8 Days of Hope has been loving and serving those in need after disasters. We've traveled the country rebuilding homes, tarping roofs, cleaning debris, and building safe places for survivors of human trafficking. The impact of a tornado or a major hurricane on a community is devastating and compounded by the lack of power that remains for days and sometimes even weeks. Families are just trying to get back to normal, but they have no power, no ability to go to the grocery store, and as a result, no access to a warm meal. From this realization, our newest arm of the ministry, Mass Feeding, was born. Today, volunteers travel with us to bring the hope of the gospel through a warm meal to those recovering from disasters. Over the course of 8 days, our Mass Feeding ministry cooks thousands of meals. We always work through a local church, and just after 2 outreaches, our Mass Feeding ministry has provided over 13,000 warm meals. Today, we need your help. For more information about this arm of the ministry, go to 8daysofhope.com. That's 8daysofhope.com.
Danny, the baby just rolled over for the first time. Oh, what a strong little boy.
That a boy, son. You're on your way.
Oh, who's my strong little man?
Rollovers can be milestones in life, some early on and some later. One rollover you might consider is from your individual retirement account to a charitable gift annuity with the AFA Foundation. If you'd like to increase your retirement income and leave an impactful gift to the work of American Family Association, the charitable gift annuity is a worthwhile option. To learn more, contact the AFA Foundation at 800-326-4543, extension 345, or email foundation@afa.net. If you own an IRA, would like to increase your charitable giving, but need retirement income, the IRA to CGA rollover may be for you. Call the AFA Foundation at 800-326-4543, extension 345.
So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are.
Welcome, friends. So glad to have you back. And yes, we need that message today, don't we? We are laying our burdens down. And the burden that parents are carrying today is the burden of technology. Oh, it's the bane of all of our existence. We wish we could throw it out. We wish we could live off the grid, but that is not possible. But today, I've got another Ask Dr. Nurse Mama Friday. I'm answering your questions on all things tech. Now, before the break, we were talking about nomophobia. I'm going to say that word again. I was even hearing from my board operator, say that word again, nomophobia, no mobile phone phobia. So before we even begin to talk to our kids about this, we have to evaluate ourselves. So I'm encouraging you, no matter what kind of family situation you have this summer, whether you're an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a cousin, a babysitter, a Sunday school teacher, a coach, think about your tech use when you are around your family and your loved ones. And I encourage you to say no to nomophobia. Don't be afraid to go out without your phone and to have some tech-free times and boundaries. Because what we're seeing is something called technoference. See, I'm answering all the questions, all these new words today. These are words that are emerging in research, and the words are important because they need to give us as scientists a common language so we know what we're talking about, because we all kind of know the feeling, but we don't know the words. This word is technoference, and that's what we're studying right now, and we are measuring the impact on families. Now, here's a definition for you. Technoference is defined as parents, or it could be really any family member, your use of technological devices that interferes with or interrupts everyday normal family relationships and interactions. It's basically your phone is coming in the way of your relationships, and it is impacting them negatively. It includes, but is not limited to, face-to-face conversations, meal times, and leisurely time together. And I've been watching with great interest the media frenzy over the anxious generation, a new book that's come out by Jonathan Haidt, and there are some really great points in this book. But there's something about the conversation and the media coverage that is bothering me, because the recommendations from that book give us as parents an easy target and a common enemy, the smartphone. Basically, we say get rid of it and all of our parenting problems will go away as we restore an old-fashioned childhood. That's the message we give to kids a lot, is I don't want to grow up in today's age. It was so much better when I was a kid. If you could just grow up like I grew up. But there's a problem with that. First of all, there's no evidence to support it, because we do live in a tech-saturated world. And don't get me wrong, I don't oppose having limits on smartphones. For sure, I don't. I have them for my own kids. It's just that's not the only solution. And it lets us as parents off the hook for our own unhealthy media use, which is something that we really need to think about. And it makes it a phone issue instead of making it a family issue. This is an issue of family health. Here's some research to consider on that. Nearly 3/4 of teens say they feel happier without their phones, but 44% also said they feel anxious without them. They're glad they don't have them, but they can't get rid of the anxiety that goes without having them. And only 31% of parents say that they're distracted by their phone, that it distracts them from their kids, while more than half of kids say, yes, you're distracted. So we have a perception gap there. And about half of teenagers feel that phones hurt their family relationships. Nearly half of families argue over their screen time use. The other half of families are clearly not telling the truth, because any family who uses phones, there are arguments inherent in there. It is a family issue. Technology may be convenient to life, but it is detrimental to relationships. So that is where my problem is in just limiting technology. Those recommendations from the anxious generation, they all essentially delay or remove phone access for kids, but there's nothing to replace that technology void with a relationship connection. It has to be a both and approach. So what do? Well, again, we start with an honest self-assessment of our technology use and screen time as a family. Ask your kids this if you dare. Ask them, what phone habits do I have that annoy or frustrate you? Now, you can tell them they need to be respectful when they tell you, but I am going to guess that most kids are not going to have any problem listing off what annoys them or frustrates them about your phone habits. And I encourage you to have an open mind and to really listen to what they have to say, because kids are going to model what they see. And if they have that, if you have that habit, they're probably going to pick it up. And we don't want them to do that. They're not going to do what we say. They're going to do what we do. Now, when we talk about phones, I'm going to move into answering some questions about some sensitive topics. So going to give another disclaimer. These are some hard topics ahead. If you have sensitive ears listening, make sure that you reposition that audience, come back to this at a later time, or move to a different room, because these are some tough issues, but things that you need to know about. So first, I'm going to review some new threats that have come with this avalanche of technology. One of the first things I want to talk about is something called revenge porn. Now, we've talked about pornography a lot, and pornography today is nothing like it was when you were growing up. If you're from Gen X, if you're a baby boomer, even millennials, we're talking about pornography then was a magazine at a grocery store with a paper cover over it. And then it might have become a video that you could rent, but it was static. And the internet has changed all of that because not only is it interactive, it is personalized, and you can communicate with the very people you're seeing on the screen and then have a connection. And this is a very dangerous chain of events that happens. But we see kids now who have access to photos, and it is very normal for them to, in today's culture, they're told that it is normal for them to exchange explicit images. This is called sexting, sending, it's a combination of the words sex and texting. It is, when you look at teen magazines, they don't say, should you do it, but it's, when should you do it? How should you do it? So you feel good about it. There's also a very dangerous intersection with criminality. Sometimes this behavior is criminal for children, even when we're talking about having possession of those images or sending them. So when we have kids who exchange these images, what we're seeing is something called revenge porn, where people will have those images that were exchanged consensually, and then all of a sudden the relationship sours and they're not together anymore. And so people are going to post those pictures or images or screenshots of text messages or even voice memos on websites that are dedicated to this. And this leads into the next threat that I really want to spend some time talking about, and that's called sextortion. Now, that's the combination of the words sex and extortion. And what is happening is this is a very real threat for today's teens. And just this week, I have seen several headlines about it. And I've been talking about this for a few years now, but it still is not very widely talked about or known. And we have a lot of parents who think my kid would never. But again, when we're putting kids with very immature decision-making capacity and access, they just have underdeveloped character to handle the overexposure that comes with smartphones. So this is something you need to know about and talk to your teenagers about. Sextortion is a crime, and it should be reported to the police, the FBI, whatever law enforcement is in your community. Now, this scenario often ends with teens who are feeling deeply ashamed of themselves. So what is it? Well, according to the FBI, sextortion is a serious crime that occurs when someone threatens to distribute your private and sensitive material if you don't provide something in return. Sometimes that may be, I want you to meet me in person and do this. That may be, I want you to give me more images. That may be, I want you to give me money. This is what is happening to kids all over, and really good kids from really good families. But they will engage online. They think they are talking to a peer. They exchange images, and then all of a sudden they realize it is not a peer. It is often a predator who is not even in this country, who then has an image they can use as leverage. So that perpetrator, they may also threaten to harm their friends or their relatives, because only about 60% of kids use privacy settings on social media. So it's very easy to friend other people. And it's shocking, really, how easily kids will accept strangers into their social network. They could see one mutual friend and say, oh, they're a friend of so-and-so. Great, they can come in. So they just need, that perpetrator needs to get one person to get some vicarious credibility. So they may threaten their friends or their relatives, or they may say they're going to send those images to them. I just read a story this morning about a teenage boy who got almost 200 messages in 2 hours. They were sending messages every couple of minutes saying, we're going to release one of these photos that you sent me to this list of friends, every 5 minutes until you send us money. And then we have teens trying to send money because they don't have good decision making in that moment. They don't know what to do. and they'll, again, want to extort something from them in return. They may threaten to send the photos to school, to the principal, to the pastor, to church leaders or community sites. And it can start on any site. It can be an app, it can be a messaging platform, it can be a video game. So this is one thing to talk about to your kids. If they're ever being messaged by someone on social media especially, or video games, and that person asks them to go to a different app, say, hey, let's go talk on this app now, it's more secure, that is a giant, giant red flag. They should never, ever, ever do that. And when I look at statistics from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they estimate that about 70% of abuse online of kids is coming through social media messaging. And that is something that really needs to be talked about. My producer and I were just talking today about the messages that we get as adults in our social media apps that are explicit. And we know that they are. We know to delete and block, but sometimes kids don't know that. Their fear of missing out, or FOMO, they may think, well, maybe this is someone I know and this is a group chat and maybe this is my friend. They open it and then all of a sudden it is just literally Pandora's box. So again, like I told you, this crime often starts when teens believe they're communicating with someone their own age who's interested in a relationship. They're usually very attractive. They are very compelling. It is difficult to overcome that. And so sometimes we can get angry with our kids, but we have to recognize that they have immature decision making. And again, their thumb moves faster than their brain. So parents should know that criminals are skilled, they are ruthless, they are very, very, very savvy. And teens shouldn't be punished or shamed if they are tricked. And obviously there's going to be some lessons there, but let me tell you this, parents. If teens are tricked online, the shame, the guilt, the fear that they have is usually more than punishment enough to be followed up with some guardrails. But they need to us to recognize that this situation is traumatic. The my child would never approach is a dangerous trap. Any child is susceptible. And kids can be really afraid to disclose their situation. We've talked about some of those specific stories on this show before. And what happens very, very sadly is that the situation escalates quickly. And many of these situations have ended with teenagers taking their own lives because they cannot see a way forward. How would I face my church? How would I face my parents? How would I face my friend group knowing they have these images and I made this horrible mistake? That's why we've got to talk about it before. So be selective about what you share online, especially publicly. Make sure that your teenager, if they're on social media, that their online profile is set to private. Block or ignore messages from strangers. Do not talk to strangers online. Only friend people you know in real life. Be aware that people can pretend to be anything or anyone online. Videos and photos are not proof of people who they claim to be. Kids believe this. They think, oh, you're Johnny's aunt's college roommates, dogs, groomers, all of these degrees of separation. They think, oh, well, then I know you. Know that images can be altered or stolen. And in some case, predators have taken over the social media accounts of their victims. That can happen too. Be suspicious if you meet someone on an app that asks you to start talking on a different platform. And know that nothing that you post online will ever truly disappear. There are companies who grab those images the moment that they're posted. They are automatically harvested. Even if you take it down in the next second, if it is posted, it is out there with a third-party host. And be willing to ask for help. If you're getting messages or requests online that don't seem right, block that sender, report the behavior to that site administrator, or go to an adult. And if you've been victimized online, tell someone. Well, we've got much more to talk about. I really want to tell you about this new threat of nudifying apps. It's new, it's here, it's scary, it's real, but you need to know, and we'll give you knowledge to empower you to protect your kids. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more information.
Hey, here's a question for you. Are you squeezing the most out of each kingdom-advancing opportunity? In The Stand, Rick Robertson tells the story about a friend who took advantage of every chance to honor God by serving others. Do you know someone like that and want to be more like them? Rick's article, A Life That Excels, shows God's instruction on how we please Him and excel when we serve Him and others faithfully. Stop by afa.net/thestand and read A Life That Excels today.
What we believe about the Bible is based on what we believe about its source.
The God Who Speaks, the award-winning documentary from the American Family Association, is now available in a special limited edition DVD set. This release includes a Sunday school curriculum and 2 hours of additional footage. Go to thegodwhospeaks.org to get your copy today. thegodwhospeaks.org.
And my father, your great-grandfather, fought in World War II.
Really?
He was a gunner on the big ship out in the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
Your great-grandmother did her part, too.
Was she on a ship?
Oh, no. She stayed back home. She and a lot of her friends worked really hard in a factory because the men had gone off to war.
Ooh.
And they held scrap metal drives to help in the war effort. The folks back home were heroes, too.
Here at the American Family Association, we consider you the heroes back home. As you fulfill your responsibility of caring for your family day to day, your partnership with us is crucial as we fight the enemies of freedom in America. Thank you for your commitment to the American Family Association.
Grandpa, what's a scrap metal drive?
Let's get some cookies, and I'll tell you all about it.
This is Abraham Hamilton III with AFR, and we're sending Bibles. Here's Michael with Bible League International.
Pastor Katsu serves in communist China. He's been beaten in jail 25 times over the course of his ministry. They beat him so severely last time he could not get up for about a week, but they let him go, told him to never speak of Jesus again. But about a week later, a knock came on his door. It was Hayo, the bitter atheist who had a question that burned in his heart all week. How were you at such peace when we were beating you? So Katsu would open his door, open his Mandarin Bible, lead this bitter atheist to faith in Christ. Together they have witnessed more than 1,000 coming to Christ there in communist China, where it is nearly impossible to find a Bible. And so in this spring season, AFR and Bible League have teamed up to bless 16,000 Bibleless believers. You've done that for 7,000. We have 9,000 to go by June 30th. So at $5 a Bible, $60 sends 12. Will you call 800-YES-WORD? That's 800-YES-WORD. 800-YES-WORD, or give at sendbiblesnow.org. Sendbiblesnow.org.
Praise the Lord, His mercy is more, stronger than darkness, new every morn. Our sins, they are many, His mercy is more.
Aren't you glad for that reminder? I need that every day. You know, every day as a parent, as a person, I fall down, I fail, I falter, but God's mercy is more, and it is enough to get us through these scary things we're facing today. Listen, welcome back to Ask Dr. Nurse Mama Friday. I am answering your questions about tech. We'll give one disclaimer here. Again, this is sensitive stuff here. So protect those little ears and make sure that you adjust your listening audience appropriately. I'm going to talk about some tough things, but things that parents absolutely need to know. So before the break, I was talking about this real threat of sextortion. So listen, you really need to talk to your kids about this and say, even from a very young age, when they're starting to be about 8 or 9 years of age, you can say something to your kids like, you know, we live in a world where there are screens everywhere, and you might encounter someone or something that you see on a screen that makes you feel uncomfortable or guilty in some way, or that just makes you're not sure about. And when something like that happens, I want you to know you can always come to me and tell me anything, and I will help you walk through that. Because kids sometimes don't understand or can't process what they've seen. They don't have language sometimes to describe what they have seen, But if you give them this language of just something that makes me feel uncomfortable, something I'm not sure about, that will prompt them to come to you. Keep that door open and tell them they can talk to you about anything, and that your first move will be always to help. So you can tell them things like this. Hey, it may seem dramatic. This is for older teenagers, but you need to know there are predators online who want to exploit you. And they're really smart, and I know that you are smart, but they are smarter, and they are more experienced, and it can be easy to find yourself in a tough situation. And those predators are going to count on you being too afraid to tell me if you get in a situation over your head. It is my job to give you advice to keep you safe online and in person, and I want you to know that no matter what happens, you can come to me with whatever happens and we will figure it out together. So this is really important to talk about, because one of the things that we see now that's changing, it used to be, we would be afraid. We talked about if kids do make a poor choice, if they exchange these explicit images and someone posts them online, it is the end of the world, it feels like. It is devastating. It is really upsetting. But we have, of course, technology that has gone to another level, and we have something called deep fakes now, deep fake porn. So what is that? This is using artificial intelligence technology to put someone's face, who has not consented to their image being used that way, onto explicit images or videos. So basically, they can take the face of someone and make it look like it's a nude image when it is really not. This is internet trolls taking fully clothed photos of you from the internet or even without your consent in public and putting your face on an unclothed body, making it seem like you when it's not. Now, this is really scary because what I'm seeing is kids who are tricked online with strangers saying, hey, I have these photos of you with no clothes on and I'm going to share them. And then kids are just absolutely distraught, thinking, how in the world did you get this picture? That is not me. So I've talked a lot about deep fakes and what that, and we've been watching this for a long time because we know this technology is evolving. But when we look at deep fakes, 96% of them are explicit and feature women. We're talking about websites that get 17 million visitors a month to make deep fake images. That is really, really concerning. And so what we have seen now in this next step is something called nudifying apps. I wish I didn't have to teach you all of this new vocabulary. Believe me, I wish I didn't have to learn it myself. But this is something you as a parent need to know. It's called nudifying apps. These are apps that use artificial intelligence or AI to undress innocuous pictures or videos of women to make them appear nude. It only works on women as of right now. Now, the difference between deep fakes and now the apps is that the deep fakes, this was generated online. You had to go to a computer. Now we have open source code that is available from I'm not even going to say where it's available from because I don't want you to go get the code, and I'm not going to give them any free advertisement, but this code is freely available. And so app developers are going on, getting the code and making apps that are now taking off like wildfire. So if you have an app on your phone to order coffee, to talk with a dry cleaner, whatever app that you use, it is just that innocuous. You download an app from the store and you take any images that you have on your phone and you generate those, you transform those into explicit images or videos. Now, these companies, this is a big deal because these companies have advertisements like undress any girl you want. And of course, demand is soaring. In the first month, the news reports that I've read have estimated that about 34 companies had 24 million visitors wanting these apps. And it is targeting minors. And it is extremely traumatizing for teen girls to have no context to suddenly seeing this deep fake photo or video of them circulating. Just in the last month, Apple removed 4 of these apps. LinkedIn removed these bot promos because sometimes we can have bots or robots online that are generating these images. It's not even people. They're using AI to create robots to do this. I know some of you are just like, I am just going to turn off the radio right now and I'm just going to go for a walk and pretend I live in 1835. Like, I get it. But we also have Google looking at this issue. They banned all ads for deepfake porn apps, bots, and sites. They removed 27 ads from their store. They removed 3 apps. YouTube took down 11 channels and 120 channels related to apps. So you see, this demand is here and it is all over. And our kids, if they are online, they are very likely to encounter it. So we can't think my kid would never. I mean, I've said it several times in this program. When kids have a smartphone, their thumbs move faster than their prefrontal cortex. Their decision making is immature. And it can seem harmless to them because it's fake, right? That is what they're going to hear from their peers, I guarantee. It's not even real, so it's okay. It is not okay. And we need to have a culture where our kids feel empowered to say, that is not okay. Just that simple phrase, empowering our kids to say that when they encounter their friends saying something like this, we need to tell our kids that it is okay to say, that is not okay. That is just the family culture that you want to create. Kids who will stand up, who will speak up, who will go and report this to trusting adults. That's really important. We need to talk to our kids before this happens. I know, because we don't want to expose our kids to things they haven't been exposed to. But guess what? Technology is faster than we are. And we, as the parents, need to expose our kids in a way that is developmentally appropriate, that empowers them to act should they encounter a threat, and that positions us as the expert. Now, this doesn't mean you have to tell them every nitty-gritty, horrible detail. Absolutely not. But just like I gave you messaging earlier, saying something like, hey, and I'll tell you what to say about this in just a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. I also think that if your kids go to school somewhere, whether that's Christian school, homeschool, you really need to talk to your kids' school about their policies on deepfakes. What is their policy? Because this is what I see as language changes, the policies don't change. So for example, when vaping first came into popularity, I was teaching in nursing school and I had a student who was vaping on a labor and delivery unit. Yes, I did. A big cloud of vape. And when we talked to this student about that, they were just absolutely astounded. And they said, no, the policy is about smoking. There is nothing in this policy that prohibits vaping. They are distinctly different. And I think that kids, when they are very legalistic in their thinking and very black and white in their thinking, they can think this same thing. So talk to your kids' school. What is their policy? How are they going to handle it? Because one of the challenges that we have is that there are very few laws. So even if this happens, what is the recourse? It's very murky and it's hard to regulate. So what is going to be the action? What's the recourse? What is going to be the restitution to the person who is harmed? Those are things important to talk to about their school. And instruct your kids to always report image-based abuse. All of these things we've been talking about, revenge porn, about sextortion, about nudifying apps, these are all couched under a term called image-based abuse. And that's a term that you can use with your kids. It's abusing kids through pictures. So any image-based abuse needs to be reported to a trusted adult. You need to always talk about that. But here's the thing, friends, we cannot lead with lecturing. We have to cultivate curiosity instead, because fear-based tactics just don't work. When we lead with a lecture and we tell them all the horrible things that can happen and we scare them, those fear-based tactics, they are very effective in generating fear, but they are very ineffective in generating behavior change. So we know this from a lot of different tactics that have been used before. So for example, you may have, when you were a teenager, seen a car that was wrecked by a drunk driver and maybe a scary video that goes along with that. It makes you feel afraid, but it doesn't decrease the risk of drunk driving. And so same here. We know that the greatest way to influence your child's behavior is through leveraging your relationship. You need to cultivate a curious approach. Ask questions about their knowledge. Ask questions about their experience. Learn together because they know things that you do not know. It's funny. My son, actually, who is a freshman in high school, he was telling me about something just this morning, and I must have looked at him like, what? Like, I didn't understand what he was saying. And he said, okay, Mom, here's my turn to teach you something here. All right, are you ready to listen? I'm going to teach you what I know. And he put his hand on my shoulder in a very paternal kind of way and gently explained the concept to me, and I understood it. We don't fully understand their experience. They don't fully understand the danger and the threat that is there. So by partnering that together through a bridge of relationship, that is where it needs to be. If your teen experiences abuse, experiences something through one of these, you need to recognize the emotional and mental trauma it can cause. Don't be afraid to act early and seek support along with advice, even from a healthcare provider, because sometimes this kind of trauma can be really, really severe. But more than that, parents, we need to be speaking words of life about identity, because all of these things, especially when we talk about images and image crafting that happens on social media, kids want three things right now in this generation. They want to be seen, they want to be known, and they want to be loved. And that is something that we as caring adults can do for them. And when the world is telling them, oh, this is when you send these images or how you send these images, we can speak words from Scripture straight to them. I can say, the world may say that, but God says, you are called, you are chosen, you're a new creation. You are forgiven. You are blessed. You are set free. You are redeemed. You are beloved. You're being transformed. You are the apple of my eye. You are pursued. You're a child of God. You are adopted. No longer an orphan. You are pleasing. You are never alone. You are a masterpiece. And parents, the hard thing is when we say these words, our kids usually don't say, oh, thank you. That fixed everything. Wow, that was wonderful. I appreciate you fixing all my problems. But they know, and it resonates in their heart. They may roll their eyes. They may say, I know. Oh, Mom. They may say those things. Push past that. Speak with confidence. Speak with love. And this, I want to close our time together by reading you a prayer that I put in my book, Behind Closed Doors, a guide to help parents and teens navigate through life's toughest issues. And if you want more information about how to initiate these conversations, I have very practical suggestions for activities to do together. But I want to pray from Psalm 139. God, I thank you for our children who are fearfully and wonderfully made, who bear your image. Your eyes saw and knew them in the womb, intricately woven. You have every day of their life in your hand. You know when they sit down and when they rise. You know their thoughts from afar, even when I don't. You search their path and are familiar with all their ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, you know what it will be. You hem me in as a parent, going behind and before me, leading me, your hand holding mine. How precious are your thoughts, O God. Search my heart. And if my words or action grieve my children or my family, lead me on the wings of the morning. Help me reflect in their eyes the image you created them to be. Well, friends, may the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you. We will see you here next week with lots more hope for healthy families. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.